What happened? Nobody's talking? What happened?
Oh, the last thing we said was Outer Ponder, so we were just waiting for you.
That's what I thought. You were getting there. I was waiting for it, and it didn't happen. And I'm like, wait, we're talking about outer ponders without someone saying outer ponders.
Yep. It was in the
Figured it
ether.
was time for me to come in and say it.
Dude, what about we were talking the other day, what if you just have ongoing water and it's just like it's like more like land pods instead of a pond. Just pods of land within massive extended waters. So instead of being like a puddle in kind of like where the water's in the puddle and there's a bunch of different puddles, what about it's actually all water with just different plots of land? So then would it be like a
Yeah, that would make sense.
outer land water?
Yeah, right, right. Like it's more like the lands are the ponds, or the dividing of the biggest infinite pond, which couldn't ever really end because water is infinite, and probably everything is water to a certain extent with a certain amount of whatever material makes up the land.
But
Partly
yeah, if you
water
had all
itself.
ice and cold though with like no sun, then yeah, you would think that it would be pretty much land like. It'd be all ice and sort of like whatever that might even be. And then the only places you
Yeah,
would
ice
have
is just frozen
land,
water, right? So even if it's ice, it's just frozen water.
right. So
Right.
you'd have to have it warmed up to even have the land like to even have anything.
Right.
So in that way it's like puddles within ice of warmth. Because if it's
Right.
all ice, because like that even gets are there areas where there's no sun and it's all ice, and then areas where there are suns and there is like a melted spot within the. So in that sense, it could be seen like a puddle, but like a puddle within a larger like ice shelf, an ongoing ice shelf, infinite ice shelf earther.
Right. Yeah, and the ice is kind of like the division between the ponds, even though it's water itself.
Yeah, because there's no sun there to heat it. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense with puddles in that sense.
I think that they may try to at least have that be something that a lot more people consider as what's going on if they do the alien psyop invasion. They may not say directly that it's outer ponders, but they may have like people divided, like people that think they know that it's outer ponders, or have been told it is, or have certain people they follow that are, seem to have proof that it is. Whether there actually are or not, I think they may just say there are and then use it, as I always say. But it's the perfect time for them to do that because the technology is, allowing them to fake it. And if there's even more land within this pond, they could just create these like futuristic type cities, which they're probably already doing, you know, and just say that's, in another pond somewhere, like not within this pond, but just tell us it's another land that people can go to, even though it's right here. Make it look like, paradise.
Yeah.
People want to go there. Because the thing is that, more and more people, even if they don't think the earth is flat, or they know they don't, even if they haven't given up on the spinning ball idea, there's a lot of people that realize that we can't go back to the moon, and that makes no sense at all. So maybe space travel is fake, but the earth is still a ball somehow, or whatever. Because that's going to be like, I mean, if they want to like fake the whole going to other planets thing, that's going to take a lot more work than just saying like, going to other ponds. And then they have the local threat, like aliens from outer space, is less scary because it's like, oh, it's just like a rodent. You can just like, kill it. Well, how would it communicate with us? It wouldn't have that intelligence. But if it's a human, that's the aliens, that's like an ancient ancestor more advanced, that's scarier because then it has like a psychological edge. Like it's already been where we are, so it's more advanced. It's already, thought all these thoughts that I have. And if it was an alien more advanced, then you wouldn't be able to relate to it at all, and it would be less scary. You just want to smash it like a bug.
Yeah, could they throw a little time travel thing in with the fake extraterrestrials? Like say that like they come from the future and they already know like what needs to happen. So here's your new world order. You gotta prepare for the promised land or whatever story they're gonna tell.
Well, if they're more advanced ancient humans, like just our ancestors that are more advanced, it's like the exact same thing is coming from the future because they've been where we are and they're more advanced. They've already gone to the future of technological advancement.
But what if
So
they
that
fake that with the advancements they actually do have, but it's actually just fake it's just a very advanced faking.
yeah, exactly. That's what I think they'll do. I mean, even if there are higher, more advanced technological humans in outer ponds, they'll give us their version of it, their fake version of it, to make us believe something that is true, but it's their version of it, which is fake.
Yeah.
Right? And the whole time travel thing, that's interesting because I was going to mention that. I think that because you said something about like interdimension time type people, like they could use that. Oh, they'll use that for sure. Because the one thing I think that's still lingering in a lot of flat earthers' minds is that time is somehow malleable. Like there actually is like somehow time is something they can warp, like with space time. And I find that interesting recently that a lot of flat earthers, like there was another server, someone was saying like the dimensions of time, may allow this or allow that. And I'm like, oh, that's it. See, time's the constant, not light. Time is the constant, and it's not even a thing you can objectify or even talk about as a thing. But they've got us talking about time as if it's something that we can escape or be out of. Like it's just our the linear progression of existence is that's not at all malleable. There's no way to ever change that. It's not like it's a thing. It's just what is. There's only one moment to the next. Time is the psyop of psyops, that you could actually have more dimensions by manipulating time and folding it and all these kind of things that go with that sci-fi idea. That's one of the last lingering things of the ball earth psyop that needs to be extinguished in my mind because it's not possible in any way. Even to say it's not possible is treating it like something that could be objectified in the way to like analyze as possibly, warpable or foldable or whatever they do to get all these other dimensions. There was this video I think Kosho was passing around, or a couple Glovers were all like, look, there's 11 dimensions, and they prove it by looking at it. And the whole thing's about if we take the past and the future and we fold it this way, but then if we fold it this way, and it's all based on time as a dimension that can be malleable in some way. And that's one of the bigger psyops that's like woven into the whole heliocentric idea. You can go to
Yeah, well, that is like the
space and
idea of
age
almost like
differently.
playing God in a sense. Yeah, like to
Yeah,
that level, being able to, and then you get the whole Mandela effect and even that part of things as well.
yeah, that
And
too. The quantum in general, the quantum psyop, quantum dimensions, alternate timelines, all that.
well, that's why I think that's one explanation for the Mandela type effect is that there's actually multiple simultaneously existing timelines in which multiple different things have happened. So there's like an entire lineage of consciousness or dimension realm, whatever you want to call it, where it was Berenstein Bears with an EI, and then another one that it was with an AI.
Right. But now we know that there's both books existing within this reality, and it's just part of the psyop that they want us to buy into with the Mandela effect. To also reify the idea that there's multiple timelines and other existences. So what's reality anyway? And it's all part of like this whole like there's no objective reality, like who cares if the earth is flat? There's no objective reality anyway. Maybe in another timeline it's a spinning ball. So what's it matter?
Well, but what's the truth of this though? I mean, that's it could it matters in terms of that. I mean, there could be other ones. Well, I guess it depends on how you view it. Like what I was talking about is kind of like a fractal parallel reality machine that just can create multiple different layers and levels from every moment. So like the idea with that is like with the Mandela is that let's say there's the one that Dolly has braces, the one that Dolly doesn't have braces. There's people that seem to remember Dolly having braces with absolute surety. It's like for every cell in their being, that's the whole thing. And that, but then now, it's different. So if that's the case, what is the explanation for that? Of course, some people are going to say like, collective memory, but the thing is that to have a collective memory that is that common, I'm not even saying that's the most common one. Like Luke, I am your father. That line. I mean, I remember my younger brother and I would run around the house when we had like lightsabers, little plastic lightsabers, and we would say, "Luke, I am your father." I mean, that was the line we said. Also, the Queen song, "We Are the Champions." You guys remember it where it was "We are the champions," and once it gets to the last one, it was "We are the champions of the world." Like those
Right.
lyrics, the "of the world" part. Like I remember that, just like I can still hear Freddie Mercury's voice because it's like the peak of that song where it's like "We are the champions," going through all that, and then it's like "of the world," and then he
Right.
holds that note, the world, and then this all
Now,
dramatic.
what's it say? What's it say for that one now?
Now it's just "of the world's" not there at all. It's just "We are the champions." And it's just over or
Okay.
whatever. That I believe, like that, yeah, generally, like just "of the world" is just totally missing. But you have all these people from our generation saying "of the world." So, anyways, I'm just saying one explanation is that there actually are multiple realities of sorts, and our memories are actually like a compilation of one of those in a sense, or one particular reality stream, even though those two streams may overlap in multiple ways, which is how people could then have these minor differences. And then there's even the idea that the minor differences that's I'm not saying all of these Mandela effects because they're all different. And, when I'm using that term, there's a lot of different ones in terms of things that are linked to that Mandela. But I'm talking about the ones that seem, in my viewpoint, like the authentic ones, not the fabricated ones, but ones that are real. And there's even the idea that like the creator is doing that to kind of show you that there's more to reality, essentially.
Well, that's what I think, though. I mean, I've looked into a lot of these, and Miles Mathis does a great thing on Dolly's braces because that she did have braces, and they're playing God by actually changing small details in this reality, and using the internet as a way of like people think that that's the ultimate source of information. So they scrub something from the internet, and there's residual. That's why there's residual of some of these things. And you can find Dolly with her braces. And Miles Mathis in his article, he's like, "Am I saying they actually made VHS copies with the white-outed version of her teeth and had them sold at garage sales?" Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's the extent they've gone to make us believe that time itself is not objective and that there's multiple timelines. And yeah, there was a parody of Luke, I Am Your Father that became more popular in people's minds than the actual movie, which never had that in it. Or they might have made two versions of it with the Queen song. It could be an actual residual of that song, which I haven't looked for yet. That and we know there is because we know there's that copy of it somewhere. Now it seems like the versions that are put out or recorded or saved, and don't get me wrong, some of them like I don't have an answer for. But there's an answer for the Dolly's braces, and there is close-ups where you can see where they've whited over the braces. So they were there. Someone's manipulating that fact, which is like one of those things that is undeniable. We all saw the braces. It doesn't even make sense without the braces. The whole scene doesn't make sense. There's also other ones where it doesn't make sense, or there's a very reasonable explanation, and the people that push the Mandela effect don't take it off their list. He says they will come and he will come. He says it two different ways in the movie. Doesn't even make sense to say it one way when you look at the plot. So there's like a lot of these that have very reasonable explanations. Berenstein and Berenstain. I have copies of both of those existing within this timeline. Could have been something with like the Jewish sounding name, so they made a Berenstain.
Well, no,
Or people
somebody
that
might have
would.
tweaked one. Somebody might have tweaked one and made it change it, like they change it with CGI or whatever. But as far as I know, like in this entire reality, like it's Berenstain and always has been. Like that's the actual name of those people. That's how it's spelled, and that's what it was in their books. When I asked my
No,
mom,
there's people that have
when I asked
Berenstein, the
my
actual
mom,
book.
to my surprise, well, not really surprised now that I know what I know, but when I asked my mom, she remembers with an AI Berenstain, as it were.
I know there's people that remember it both ways, and I think that's because there was two different versions, and people could buy the Berenstain that were anti-Semitic because they didn't associate it with a Jewish-sounding name.
Oh, there's a deeper part to the story. You're
Yeah,
you're suggesting some deeper. Wow. All right. Well,
part of
I'm
the reason they made two versions. Yeah, there's actual two versions. You can see people with the books that say Berenstain on it, and it actually exists a real book, not just a tweaking of graphic design or something.
I have seen one, but I didn't know if that's actually like an authentic print or whether that's just someone showing what it would look like or whatever if it was Berenstein or just
But there
spelled.
are a lot of these that have explanations that are very reasonable, and then people that are like Mandela effect believers still keep it on their list. That's what's annoying. Like Fruit
You said
Loops.
before you said before if this is occurring in my viewpoint, the way that I when I threw that out there, I'm not even saying that that is exactly my viewpoint. I was just throwing out
Oh,
that
I
like
know, I know.
and I'm just saying like that thing I had laid out. The thing is though, like if there is like multiple sort of memory streams or consciousness like timeline streams, you were saying before that it means that like time is not objective. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think time can still be objective, in a way that we're all collectively experiencing it, but it would indicate that time is not necessarily permanent.
Well, if it was multiple, like if like the whole idea, and I understand the theory, like every possibility actually happens because of quantum dimensions and time. That's it exists in a different timeline somehow in another dimension. But if that were the case, you'd have more than just two ways people remember it. There'd be like millions of ways that people remember it. It wouldn't just be like one little small detail that some people remember this way and some people remember that way. You know what I'm saying? There'd be several different ways that everybody remembers everything if that were the case.
The
Well, I think I
deceiver.
see what you
Wait, one
mean.
sec,
Yeah,
Gio. One sec.
I get the
The,
vibe of
the
what you're saying.
the deceivers put a lot of things into this realm to confuse people, and moreover, especially with this fucking shite, they can go back and manipulate history, change things, and tell you it was this or it was that. This is like this grinds my gears a little bit, Dave. I'm not shocked that you brought it up, to be honest. With all the stuff that you bring into this fucking VC.
Sometimes they manipulate those things. That's part of it, though. It's the same people doing the same kind of things, manipulating our reality, changing people's identities sometimes, in my opinion. And part of that is their. In fact, I have I thought it'd be great. Everyone should contribute to this at some point. Like I think I've talked about it before. Like a book that's like a book of anonymous Illuminati quotes, or like somebody in the Illuminati, quote unquote, must have said this at some point because this is like the reality we live in, and they must have made a decision to make this the reality we live in now. Like I even had Nate looking for like the quote on Wikipedia when I made one up and put it in the chat. He's like, who's that quote by? And he's like, look it up on Wikipedia, like who said it. And the quote is, if we can convince man that space is what we imagine it to be, we will own his mind. But if we can convince man that time itself is something we can manipulate, we will own his soul. Kind of ominous, but it's so true. Like they want to own all of the basic elements of our existence. And part of that is making people believe that time is something that's not a constant and that light is something that is a constant, which is not true. It's the opposite.
Yeah, happy Halloween. You've sold your soul.
Exactly.
We all sell them on over to the Grim Reaper. But yeah,
That was funny the other day with who was it? I think it was Jace and SE, and I don't know. It was just funny to me. I love it when they try and sell the space time thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like I was just trying to explain, and SE was as well, just trying to explain it to him as simply as possible. But he was doing his little workaround and doing his mathemagics, and it's like, no, dude, no, we're not bending concepts. We're not bending.
Yeah.
Do
Conceptual
you know what I mean?
mathematics is reality. Come on.
It was funny. I was laughing. I was having a good laugh about it, to be honest. But yeah,
Before
the whole
we,
is that is certainly interesting. I don't know if I've seen that quote, but it made me think of Back to the Future.
Yeah, the irony
before
in
we
hearing
back
someone
away,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
nah, it'll be long. I want to hear you
Oh.
first. Go.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's the irony in hearing somebody that is obviously an intelligent person be convinced that conceptual mathematics is actually our reality because they can understand the conceptual mathematics, and they've been convinced that actually has something to do with our physical reality. They're explaining it in a way that, with this arrogance, like Jay Ace or the guy that Whitsitt was arguing with last night, as like matter is so funny and ironic that they're talking about these things matter of factly, like the tornadoes on Jupiter or whatever, like because they've been told that, and it has to do with this authority, intellectual pseudo intellectualism, and to see the arrogance on their face, it's just like, it's so the perfect illustration of what these men have created. It's Frankenstein, basically.
Well, what's interesting to me is, I mean,
Frankenbeliever.
Frankenbeliever, yeah, Franken space timer.
This recognition, and to me, a deep recognition that time isn't real. Ultimately, it's a concept. It's that is a deep spiritual connotation for all people, and it can really cut through the bullshit, cut through the words and everything else. Really, I I really want to talk about that a lot, but I realise that not many folks will go with me on it. I don't think, but I think it's tied to um, our true identity, if you will. That is timeless, if you see, truly timeless. You know,
What were you
and
saying was timeless in particular? I kind of missed what you were getting at.
our true identity, sort of thing. Spirit, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
I think we get lost in these words a little bit, and it was that deep recognition that time isn't real, that sort of cuts through all. It's like a hot knife through butter, just, and you're like, oh shit,
Well, do you think that maybe the collective unconscious is always building in, like, the Akashic records or whatever you want to call it? Like, there's always like this intellect, this constant gathering of this of memory, this collective memory that we have, that somehow is still in the ether, and will always be. But that kind of is what makes you or anyone think that it's timeless, because it's the past, all collectively still there in our collective unconscious.
Yeah, I don't know. I've thought about this quite more than any man ever should. I think to the point where I never want to think about it ever again. So I just end up in this place where I'm speculating, and it's not a very comfortable place because I don't know. I don't know ultimately. So
Well, yeah, we couldn't, right? Because that's the paradox we have to live within. Because if we knew, then there would be nothing else to seek.
I do feel like
Yeah.
once we cross over, that it's not the personality sort of stays here. That makes sense to me anyway. The thing that truly matters in you passes over, if you will. The thing that you think of as you, the thing that's made in time, and I think that makes sense to me that it stays here in this time realm. That makes sense to me anyway. But again, I could imagine a lot of people not going with me on that because they'd be like, well, then what was the point? There's no purpose to it. Well, what's the point of dancing? What's the point?
There you go. That's a
Why
good
do you
one. What's
dance?
the point in dancing? I like that one.
Yeah, why do you dance?
Right. There has to be a reason for it, and that takes away from the expression of it.
Exactly, yeah.
Who was trying to butt in before, or not butt in, but
I was gonna say before we got off the Mandela effect, I've kind of gotten deep into it, and I agree with you. I agree with you, man. Like, I think it's more of a deception than anything, because there's all these fragments and remnants of it, but it does yield to the whole hologram theory, and the whole, like, our existence is meaningless if it's just a part of something else, right? We're living this hologram. But something else to add to that convo is like the whole AI, like this super intelligence that's going to come and rectify every error in our quote unquote hologram existence, Because if they're going to say that we're like some giant simulation and this is like simulation, Like they're going to come out with technology or something, some sort of deception that proves simulation theory. Well, then we can simulation, and then we can prove why the Mandela effect even happened. And we can start to tweak things. And if you can prove that like Berenstain went to Berenstain and Dolly's braces, and we are the champions of the world, which I remember of the world, right? I was born in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
I remember it as the world. And if you can prove all these things and say, okay, we can augment our reality, then that yields to this whole like, well, we need this super intelligent AI, right? Which to me, an AI, there's no such thing as an artificial intelligence. Like there's like machine learning, but there's not necessarily a
Right.
an intelligent entity outside of what's been created already that was alive and a living entity. And so I think that's what kind of opens up for this great deception and this antichrist. Which if these famous things that we all remember are changed, why couldn't the Bible be changed? And they're already talking right now about like AI rewriting the Bible and taking out its errors and these sorts of things. Which is like, dude, I mean, if we can prove that we're in a hologram and it can be fixed, man, it just opens the door up for tons of deception in the future.
Oh yeah, and they'll convince people because the AI algorithms are so good at predicting what's going to happen because of like all of the factors that go into that algorithm. Like if given this amount of likelihood, then and this amount of certain mindset of certain people, this might happen. Therefore, there'll be prophets out there that are in the form of AI or even using AI to predict things and seem like prophets, and it will be very convincing.
I just looked up the song lyrics of that song, and it does say of the world. So
Yeah, the actual lyrics are there. I'm sure there's a version that I haven't heard that one before, in fact, or actually maybe I just didn't pay enough attention to it when I first heard it. But yeah, there's got to be a version where that actually is said because we all know that that's the way we heard it.
well, that's how I remember it. I seem to recall because they did this huge Live Aid thing in 1980 something. The Feeding Africa and all that, Band Aid or whatever. And I seem to recall that maybe I don't know. I seem to recall because it was a huge audience at Wembley, like 100,000 people or something like that. And
Oh yeah,
I can remember. I remember.
Dude, yeah.
I remember Freddie of the World. I definitely remember that. So,
hey Andy, all you have to do is go ask Dr. Phil because that's who Freddie Mercury is now.
see, this is what I'm talking about, Dave. You can't keep doing
I'm
that.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I know,
I'm not kidding, but I am kidding.
You understand that you know better. That you know better than the deceivers. Did you see that?
No, I'm saying I think some of these things are absolutely seem to be the case, in my opinion.
It keeps people off of balance. That's the way I see it.
Wasn't OJ's wife Nicole became like some famous movie or not movie? She became like the newscaster.
Yeah,
that
seems to be possible. That's possibly the case. Yeah,
that's the one that opened my mind up to that.
Well, the whole OJ thing seems like a psyop, regardless if she became Megan Fox or not. So if the whole thing's a psyop, then where do those people go? Some people think that the Ronald, the other guy that was supposedly killed along with her, became fucking the governor of California, and it looks like it could be. They do have very similar looks.
I think I've got pretty good discernment, and I see how people love a conspiracy. Oh my god, and me too. I'd include myself in that as well. But like, I kind of know truth when I see it. Like, not to paint myself as a special boy. I don't want to fall into that trap. But I'm just saying that I've got a pretty good hold on my own discernment. And then when somebody else is in the same chat and he's like, fucking Bill Hicks is Alex Jones and starts all with this fucking nonsense, that undermines the whole thing. It makes.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Everyone else looks stupid, Dave.
Right. I think that what I think. I think that that when you say something like that, the best way I've found is to say it seems to be the case, as far as I can tell, for me,
No,
from what I've
no,
looked into, rather than saying it is the case. And then on your side, saying there's no way it is the case is another definitive claim that you don't necessarily know, especially if you
no.
haven't
I
looked
do
into
know.
it. So
I do know.
someone saying they do know then automatically makes their opinion less credible rather than more credible because they've given up speculation completely.
No, I'm saying I'm going that one step further and seeing the fucking 4D chess being played. And I'm saying they are here, and I'm kind of implicating you are here to undermine everyone else and make us all look fucking stupid.
Are you under the impression they've never had somebody famous declared
This is
dead
how the
and then have
deceivers
that
play
someone?
the
I'm
game,
just saying.
dude.
Are you saying is there a hard and fast rule in your mind like that's never happened ever?
This is how deceivers play the game. And I see straight fucking through it.
So you're saying it's never happened in your mind? There's not one of those cases that actually might be the case.
Everything I've seen about that just looks silly to me. I don't know.
Okay, so then you're under the impression that's never happened.
Yeah, I think Paul McCartney is Paul McCartney. Yes.
Yeah, sure, that one. But what about others? Are there any others that you've looked at that seem like maybe questionable to you?
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen one that was even. I'm trying to think now because I have to cast myself back. And
I'm
no, I
saying
don't
your
think I've seen
aversion,
one.
maybe your aversion to Paul McCartney being someone different has made you like unable to see that it's possible in other cases because then it might mean that Paul McCartney's not who we were told.
What about celebrities just getting killed and replaced with doubles, clones, or whatever?
I think the clone thing might
By
be
that?
partly deception at least. I think they probably can clone people, but as far as making them become the person that they replaced, that's I guess it's possible, but I don't know. That might be part of the deception. When they can get an actor to do it with a mask, it's much easier than cloning someone and training them to be the person that they used to be, or that they were cloned from.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's more likely doubles or actors, or
Yeah,
just somebody that assumes their role.
right. That's easier, way easier. Definitely, I
I
think
agree
they
with
can
you there.
clone people. That makes sense. I don't know how much they perfected it. And then there's the whole thing of like, they're supposedly they can like duplicate the brain through this holographic technology and actually duplicate it. Now, whether that then you would have to go through the process of having that person have the same memories, which would be a whole other challenge. Like even if they had the same connections in the same exact brain, it doesn't create those memories for them and that experience that would make up a personality. So that's where it becomes kind of far fetched. But there
Yeah,
was
earlier
something I
we
was
were.
going to say about the AI that I just learned about an hour ago. I was listening to another person talk about that they're using algae now with these computer networks. So they have like a living, multiplying organism that is integrated within the technology to make it a living technology to a certain extent, right? And I thought that was fascinating, and that makes a lot of sense. Like if the AI or the algorithm has like an organism attached to it that is also multiplying and living, and it becomes more sustainable because it's a multiplying organism rather than something that's going to like eventually corrode, then that's another level of possibilities that I didn't think about. Because then it could learn possibly, in a more real sort of sense, as an AI type consciousness. If it's like some kind of living organism that's part of it. Wow. Makes me think about information and how like that is like so much of what we are driven by as humans. Like there's even the theory that like the word or the symbol is the organism, right? And that it's just using us to progress itself. Not that I think that's true, but it's an interesting concept. And that it'll outlive us through the computer. possibly.
Yeah, they do. They do like to blur the lines between things we can know, things we can believe. Blur the lines between belief and knowing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they did with 9/11. I thought was a big marker in the timeline where they just like there was a line in the sand and they just went and kicked the line and just smudged it and made it completely hard to tell exactly what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
And controlled opposition on both sides. All about, using the truth to control our minds. Because that's our natural instinct, to try to seek the truth, right? Or at least it seems like most of us. Even if we're like normies that think they have the truth, it seems like that was the instinct to be curious enough to find out what they think, what's going on. And then once they've got that, it's such a security thing, like you're so dependent on that being the case that you have this adolescent reaction to new information, like Whitson and Geo were talking about earlier. And Geo, that thing about the circumcision is that is so true about the traumatic coming into this life with a traumatic event that totally your whole rest of your existence kind of hinges upon that because you become so insecure and so traumatized that like the rest of your life, your instinct is to avoid that type of trauma. And to be dependent on whatever you need to get over it, and like the brain doesn't allow itself to ever go to that point again. And using those little triggers then makes the whole system of people like much more malleable and controllable.
Yep. Oh yeah, dude. There's a lot of deep implications of that, like that imprint. It's like an attack on the male genitalia directly. If you're talking about circumcision, particularly, and then all of the reactionary, even like violence or aggression or just misplace of trust.
Yeah. Yeah, like they say with some of this child pedophilia, there's something that happens in the brain when a young boy is sodomized, like a crack or some kind of like physiological change in the brain. They say that makes him more, controllable.
Yeah, I saw something the other day, like a news report on one of the Truther channels, where they were talking about people can just, like these pedophiles, I don't know if they've been convicted or they've been found out, but there's this thing that's built in, it's legal, where they can just escape to Israel and face no justice whatsoever.
Wow.
Imagine. And they have done, and then they've been like, there was this one dude they'd followed basically, and he'd been caught, he was fondling some 9-year-old in the States, and then when he got to Israel, he was fondling some 5-year-old. Unbelievable. I'm like, this is wild. So yeah, I don't know what that was on. I think it's on Pirate Pete, on his Truther channel. He does all the Truther videos. But it was just like a mainstream, something you'd see on the news. But again, that could be, well, I don't know. I don't want to speculate what it could be, but that's
Well, we
gross,
know
isn't
we
it?
know to a certain extent a lot of that's true, and then they use that as like another like they always use like the truth to sell more lies or attach the big truth that seems obvious and it is obvious in your face, and then they attach it to this like red pill pseudo intellectual fundamental Christian slash woke type movement that's like all about like manly men and women should be feminine and that's the way it is, and we need to move on now with this new red pill generation that's based on these things that have to do with pedophilia, which is a very blatant in your face crime that then they say they attach to like that revolution is attached to that truth, even though that's something that like Epstein probably is still alive, and all those things, but they had to be given this like little like victory of sorts, like through the red pill slash woke MAGA, a Q movement that seems to be kind of building up a lot of energy in people like us.
Well, no, I was thinking it. I was thinking it more along the lines of so they could use the, you know, if they turn a lot of hatred, because you think of the reparations that these people have had, but not only that, they use this victim sense of victimhood, and if they turn a lot of anger to this one small place, you know, in the Middle East or whatever, they can harness that energy. If you see, um, yeah, it's clever.
Yeah, they
It
use
really is.
prisons that way too, right? They even like pluck people that have a, you know, certain amount of characteristics out of prisons and use them as sleeper agents or whatever they say.
Oh, I just watched that video, North. Yeah, Mike. You know, Michael Jackson's, I think, the first album I ever bought when I was a child. You know, um, I think it was bad. Was it bad or was it Thriller? I think it was bad. I know Thriller came out first, but I was like very young. I remember I bought the single as well. It was called. It was like the Bartman. Remember The Simpsons? Do the Bartman.
Uh-huh.
I'm just showing my age now. That's the first album I ever bought. Michael Jackson's Bad, I think. And yeah, I was sometimes jokingly say America's greatest export is Huey Lewis, just for a bit of fun, you know.
Sure.
Because my brother always listened to Huey Lewis. I'd always hear it coming out of his bedroom because he was like 10 years older than me. So yeah,
Well,
Huey
on
Lewis.
that topic though, don't you see that there's like a financial decision that goes on a lot of times with these things? Like if you're gonna fade away, right? And you're not gonna have that last boost of record sales, and you've got all these people dependent on your name being the industry that you were, and you're now like a aging rock star. It's just a financial decision to give up your legal fiction name. You have a some kind of tragic death or whatever they want to say, and then your record sales boost. You become a legend, and that's a better way to end as that kind of person than just fading away and people forgetting who you were.
I was just commenting on a video North had posted in the chat.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Michael Jackson still being alive.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
Because I'm of course I don't know, but it seemed to me that Michael was trying to expose some things. That's what it seems to me. Just not that seems we're talking about it.
Yeah,
And
they may have wrote him in like part of his whole thing was being the martyr, right? Not that he wasn't like against some of the powers that be, but that's what part of what the whole thing was. They killed him because he was trying to tell the truth, just like Kennedy or some of these other people.
well, I mean, I don't know ultimately, but it does look like I know they got a bit pissed off when he did that song. They don't really care about us, and
Uh-huh.
one of the lyrics is "Do me," isn't it? Do me, everybody do
Uh-huh.
that. And I
Right.
just remember the interview with Michael there and that girl, and she's grilling him. The lady's sort of grilling him, and Michael's going, "What? Huh? Well, I'm the victim here." He's doing
Uh-huh.
that. And what's the meaning of this lyric, Michael?
Right. And it's funny because that's the lyric that like, shows that there's an incompetence on that idea that it's just the Jews rather than Zionists, like anyone that says it's the Jews seems like ignorant to the idea that it's not Jews, it's Zionism.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know who it is. I just think it's people with lots of money against the rest of. That's the way I kind of look at it. I've said before, I think the Jews are as much victimized as anyone else. They're told all these bloody silly narratives, and you know, they. Do you imagine doing that to a child? And there's no wonder they do that. The Owen Benjamin thing. They're trying to hurt me.
Yeah. Just to say the Jews, though, if anyone that I'm just suspicious of any like truther that's calling out the Jews, because it's just like playing to the short-sighted people that think that like the, that a religion or even a certain sect of people, like any of that, they would all be in some group when it's more particularly a certain group of people that could be all kinds of religions that are contributing to this overall control. And then maybe Zionism itself is also another short-sightedness that, that is controlled on another level that we can't even see.
You're welcome to believe, Pete, the Paul Fall thing, all you like.
Pete? Oh, Pete's in the chat talking to you. Yeah.
Perhaps wait,
Well,
wait.
it's one of those things.
Perhaps wait
It's-
until
it's-
I'm not in the VC if you're going to talk about it. Appreciate that.
It's a trigger for you. But do all of these things then become a trigger? That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, because the Paul Fall thing triggers you so much, maybe there's some that like you'd actually be intrigued by and entertained by, but you can't allow yourself to do it because then it means that maybe Paul is Fall.
Or maybe there was so much shit. Think about all that sensationalism that was around them, right? Think of how many stories that didn't catch hold, that didn't capture the public's imagination like this one did, and just fell by the wayside. This is just one that took hold, that's all.
Well, not to even bring this up because you don't like to talk about it, but since we're talking about it, like, they did make like the whole thing about Paul dying, like in the clues on their albums. Like, that's not like a secret. That's like an open thing that they actually did do for some reason, right? That Paul had died and they used like clues in their albums. So is your take on it that they just did that as like a way of like, playing with the public themselves?
Well, I listened to Crow did a really good episode where he got like four of, I don't know what you'd even say, the experts, the foremost experts on this topic, and he had them all debate each other, and it was super interesting. I don't know which episode it is. Crow 777 Radio. I'd highly recommend going and listen to it because every little thing you've ever heard about that they brought up. It was a long thing. It was like 2 hours, and it was worth listening to. And I'm not going to shy away from something like that just because I really like the Beatles. I want to know the truth. And
Do you
another
really, though?
guy.
Would you
Of
really
course I
want to
do.
know? Would you really want to know if I could prove to you that Paul wasn't Paul McCartney after a certain point? If I could prove that to you, would you really want to know, or would you just not want to look
Yes,
at anything I send you?
of course I want to know.
But it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, well, I've already accused you of being a deceiver, Dave.
I'm not a deceiver.
I'm not joking.
I want. Hey, when you want to know and you're considering all these things, you're not a deceiver, but you're just open to the idea that this is possible and that it seems likely because of these reasons.
Yeah,
Doesn't make you a
possible. I
deceiver.
mean, probable though? No, not really.
Well, I would imagine if you look into it as much as I have, you might go more towards probable.
No, I think I probably looked into it more than you have, Dave, and it's nonsense.
I doubt that, but let's not have a competition over who looked into what.
You started this pissing contest, sir.
You don't want me to
No,
start posting pictures? Come on.
No. Don't post the pictures. Look, this dude, Wings of Pegasus. He does an excellent video, and I'll post that. And just watch it because
All right,
just
I'm
like
open to any information. I'm open to
just
it.
like just like what I said, where because I'm very confident in like the human condition. That's like
what I was getting at, though, is
as you know.
if
One
Paul
sec,
was,
Dave.
if
One
it's
sec,
the
Dave.
same.
Dave.
I'm sorry. Go
One
ahead.
sec. I watched an interview with Paul pre and post, and I just absolutely knew that I was the same person.
Okay.
And I don't need anything else. Now you can do all kinds of little tricks, like look, he's 3-4 inches taller in this picture, and all the fucking stupid shit that they say. Look, his nose. And they had an Italian forensic specialist do this with his nose and his facial recognition and all the stupid shit that they do. And like, I don't need any more than to look at a couple of minutes of footage from one interview pre and post his supposed death, and I know that's the same person. So,
Well,
but
some
this
people
guy,
might accuse you of not looking into it enough. Then, if you just need a couple minutes.
no, I'm just trying. I'm trying to. What's the word? I'm trying to like. I'm trying to show that I I know the human condition very well. I've had to heal myself, and then so I can see in others. You see, so yeah, I it's like I don't know.
What
It's
I was going to
almost
say though is,
supernatural.
okay, like even if you're right that it's the same Paul McCartney, you have to at least admit that then this whole thing about Paul is dead or Paul was replaced is a psyop of its own. That's got like it's been blown way out of proportion for a reason, and actually maybe even contributed to by Paul and the Beatles themselves with the album covers and all that. Like it's a massive psyop if it's the same person.
Yeah, this guy Wings of Pegasus. He does an excellent video just showing how there's loads of little like things that he does, the way he plays his instrument, etc., etc. And
Right.
I know for me, when I was watching those two interviews, there's all kinds of little ticks that we do unconsciously, that we little moves, little head bobs, little things that we do, and yeah, it's very easy to see it's the same person. But
Yeah, we don't need to belabor it. I mean, I think that you've decided that you think is true and that you're comfortable with
well,
it.
we do, Dave, because you keep posting shit and like the two pictures, and it's really
You don't want
annoying.
me to start posting again. I'll show you. I'll show you it's not Paul if you want me to.
There you go.
In
You
my
see,
opinion, no,
there you go.
that doesn't seem to be Paul. I could just say it that way. I don't want to say it's not Paul definitively because I
It's
can't
just a
know for
different
sure.
dude. Yeah, it's a different guy.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Billy Shears.
Well, even Eddie Cochran. Recently, I've looked into that idea.
Like a lot of these, I don't necessarily agree with all the ones, that are claiming that people are other people and all that.
Yeah,
But the Paul Fall one, I've done a pretty good amount of research in that, and one of the really interesting ones is the voice prints. Have you seen those? Where there's um, these German like experts in like voice recognition and voice prints. Basically, the idea that we all have a certain print to our voice, kind of like a fingerprint. We all have a voice print, and they basically heard about this Paul McCartney thing, and they totally thought it was obviously a hoax, and they just thought it was a hoax, and they were going to debunk it. And so they did these very detailed analysis of voice prints between the claimed original Paul and then the fall, as it were, the faux Paul guy who is said to be Paul McCartney now. And to their incredible surprise, they found that they were different voice prints. And so even they had to start to consider that this could be true. And like that's coming from very mainstream, science world, as it were. So they were from Germany. So I thought that was interesting.
yeah. I looked deep into it. I think that I mean the best that I could come up with, and I'm pretty sure of it that Paul McCartney's still alive. That's the whole thing. It's a psyop within a psyop, right? Even though it's based on the fact that Paul isn't the Paul that we knew, he was replaced at a certain point. But the real Paul isn't dead, and that's part of the psyop.
I
Real
don't
Paul,
necessarily ever agree with the idea that he was killed, even though, yeah, that
yeah,
is kind of part of the narrative.
yeah,
But yeah, I like that's just part of it. But just that it's a different actual person, because yeah, it's basically their Freemasonry guy, the guy
yeah.
who replaced him. Yeah, that's why like he basically took the whole band over, and he's like the superstar ever since they.
Well, the other part of it, a lot of these Paul is dead people won't even touch, is the idea that John Lennon himself is actually still alive and living in Liverpool and still takes care of a strawberry fields, the garden, and repaints the gate. And his name is Colin Unwin, and that seems to be the original John Lennon that was also replaced. So the whole Paul is dead thing is like a sidestep, in my opinion, from what I looked into. The whole thing is like Paul is dead, right? Paul was replaced, but they'll never tell you about all the other Beatles being replaced as well at certain points.
That's where I got to with Loggy. I'd arguing with him about Paul because he knew it triggered me, and then eventually got to this place. Well, they replaced them all anyway. They replaced all four of them, and I was like, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's
I'm
what
out.
you don't want to know. If it is true, you'd rather not know, right?
No, no, Dave. It's not about me not wanting to know. It's
You
about
said you're
me.
done. You said
It's
you're done.
about me exposing you fucking retards and the
Well, you can't
fucking
expose them
stupid
unless you
delusional
know
shit
exactly
you
what they
believe.
say. You can't expose anything unless you've done you've gone to the
Dude,
point where you're not saying you're
it's
done.
delusional bullshit. For
I know
fuck's sake.
you want to believe that, but you haven't done the research to convince me you know that.
Hmm. Yeah, because some Italian forensic scientist. Look at it. It's different. His face is different. Have you seen Italians make anything? Have you seen the Leaning Tower of Pisa, by the way? I wouldn't trust an Italian to do anything but make me dinner. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, the question is, what's the truth of it? Yeah, is it the same guy? I mean, at the end of the day, they also like. There's all these connections that he has. Have you seen the those memoirs, the Billy Shears memoirs?
Yeah.
That is
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah. 666 pages or something like that.
I mean, it's basically this guy, this Freemason, who claims he's interviewing the fake Paul guy, and it's
Yeah.
like a tell-all. It's like a tell-all. He tells
Yeah.
exactly how they pulled it off, how they've done it, all the dynamics involved.
Yeah. And a lot of that might be part of the psyop. It's based on a truth that it's not the same Paul, but the whole subterfuge of it is that they've got this guy named Billy Shears, which may not even be the guy, that
Well, yeah, I
replaced
could
him.
even imagine. Yeah, I was just saying Billy Shears is part of like
Yeah, I
it's,
know.
it's
I know.
part of the Beatles lyrics, and it's and then when like Sergeant Pepper came in, and you know, may we introduce to you, the one and only Billy Shears. So yeah, I'm not saying that was like his original name or whatever, but
Right.
it is interesting that like the whole what would you do if I sang out of tune? It's like there's this whole like I'm this new guy in the band, what's going on like in Sergeant Pepper's. That's what's crazy about it too. All the like all the different things that they put in their lyrics and stuff. I mean, there's a lot to it all, whatever it is. It definitely
Yeah.
seems like some kind of
Brilliant.
Hollywood black magic ritual thing.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. And it's like such a small example of some of these larger truths that we're trying to pick apart and figure out where the subterfuge comes in and how it could be that there's so many people like, convinced and working with these people, but then like, they never even went to the moon and they made it seem like, fake on purpose for the subterfuge that followed. And, some of these things they're doing with the ISS and like, how could it be that we see this thing in the sky, but it's not really like there's no people up there. Wait, so then what about the stuff on the ISS where they're showing us them on harnesses on purpose for some reason? Like it's the revelation of the method. And that Paul is dead thing is a perfect example of that because like it seems like he was replaced. But he's not dead, and maybe he wasn't Billy Shears. Maybe it was Eddie Cochran. Maybe it was all these. There's all these like the truth is like what they're playing with, and then building these like pseudo truths based on the truth that he was replaced. But then like the whole lore that goes into it with the album covers and bare feet with the Abbey Road, and the bare feet must mean he was in a coffin, and like the black rose and all these things that were placed at the time to create this pseudo
Bullshit.
truth
Yes.
around something.
You
Possibly
see how you're
bullshit.
spelling it out, Dave?
Hey, I'll say possibly bullshit. Yeah, possibly.
You sound like
Seem
Pete
it
right
to
now.
me.
Sorry, Pete.
Doesn't. Hey, I'm not saying definitively though. That's what gives me, I hope, a little more credibility than saying I know for sure. Because you have to always
Well,
be open to everything.
yeah, look,
I'm open to it being bullshit even, right? But I don't think so.
yeah, I'm open to the possibility. I mean, look, all the world's a stage, and each must play a part. I get it. I get it. The fucking people are playing games. I get it. But you've got to see the negative side of this as well. And just how, as I said before, I likened it. I use this analogy where you've got a big field with a rabbit hole in the middle of it, and it's ultimate truth. And what the deceivers do, put 1,000 fucking holes around that one hole that leads to the ultimate truth, say. That's an analogy I used, and I don't think it's that great, actually. I probably should change it to something else. But you see what I'm saying? It muddies the waters, and it's a fun distraction, I guess. There's money to be made in it, of course. These people pushing these agendas, these people that are saying all these things, they're selling books. They've got a dog in the race. This is the truth. They've got a dog in the race. So
Yeah. So you agree it's a psyop, at least even if it's not the truth, right? Maybe it is the same Paul, right? But they're built on the psyop, the idea that he was replaced, and you realize that there's a major effort going into that for some reason.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And what's the reason? Possibly.
Well, there's all kinds of financial reasons for it, isn't there?
Like just the
But
selling of the books.
well, it's a fun distraction too. People love a conspiracy, don't they? You know,
Mhm.
keeps people distracted.
Mhm.
You know, sends people down rabbit holes that are just totally fucking meaningless.
And the Beatles themselves
lead
knew
to
that.
nowhere.
The Beatles themselves played into it. You realize that then too. If it
Oh, of
is a
course,
psyop,
yeah,
they themselves are contributing to it
yeah.
by putting out the album cover clues and all that, right?
Yeah. The other day, I mean, the other day I was talking about Nowhere Man, and I was talking about the lyrics specifically. And you just read the lyrics, and I was saying, and you know, it's with a heavy heart that I was, you know, I was saying this is fucking spellcraft. This is just plain and simple spellcraft tied to all that Tavistock shit, you know.
So
So
that's interesting because you're actually open to the idea that Tavistock and some of these other men were writing the lyrics for the Beatles. Yet you're not open to the idea that it wasn't the original Paul that was involved in this.
well, as I say,
I'm
I watched
saying,
the interview.
wouldn't it give the original Paul a little more credit that he wasn't involved in the psyop part of it? He was just like a real artist that they gave up his identity to have like residual income for the rest of his life from the Beatles music and live a quiet life with his original girlfriend that that he wanted to live a real life with. Wouldn't that give the original Paul a little more credit than being involved in this psyop on the public?
I mean, this is how I tended to leave it with Loggy because you know, as I say, it's just retarded, and it ends up down this, you know, ugh. But I'd just say something along the lines of, well, look, the person they replaced him with, this guy is a fucking genius. He deserves all the Emmys, all the Oscars, because, you know, he not only is he can play a right-handed guitar upside down, he can play left-handed, of course. He
Mm-hmm.
can the amount of things that this person can do, and he's got all the ticks down. He's got all the little mechanics that you notice in the original Paul, quote unquote. It's like it's nuts. So yeah, that guy's fucking performance is amazing.
Yeah,
That's what I would say. But obviously,
yeah,
I don't even entertain that because I just think it's the same person. So
yeah, yeah. It would be an amazing thing, right? Like that's what I say about like Alex Jones, whether it was Bill Hicks or Sam Kinison or somebody that was not even either, or maybe it was even both of them playing a part at one point is a possibility. But regardless, it's a brilliant performance by Alex Jones or whoever, if it was Sam Kinison or if it was Bill Hicks. That it's brilliant because they've done so well at performing this character that they've hidden like some of the essential qualities that we recognize them as. Like even their own sense of humor is hidden, because he's not as funny as either of those, or it doesn't
well,
seem to be at least.
like I said, to me, like I think I've got pretty good discernment, and so the way I look at it is I can only speak from that, and so all this is deception, and it needs to be. I need to sort of, you know, it's clawing up at this at the basic truth. I mean, you're talking about Alex Jones and Bill Hicks and Sam Kinison. They're all different people, dude.
Yeah, it
You
seems like it.
realize that?
It does seem like
No,
it, even though their looks are very similar.
so yeah, they're all humans. Yeah, that's what they. It's just he's just
Well,
so
yeah, I
silly.
do agree with you. Those are all different people. I would. I don't
It
think
Of
seems
Bill
like
Hicks
course,
is out. I don't think Bill Hicks
I
is
can't
out
say
there.
for sure.
I think Bill Hicks kind of took some of his persona from Alex Jones, or sorry, other way around. Alex Jones took part of his persona from some of these other guys, like a lot of artists or people do. You know, they take a certain style. Like, yeah, so Bill Hicks, Steve Kinison, a lot of these guys that have that type of style to it. So I think Alex Jones kind of copied their style, like artistically, the kind of screaming, yelling. Then he added his own thing to it. But that kind of like aggressive thing. I mean, it's very different though. I mean, Bill Hicks and Alex Jones are pretty different, even in their performances. But I do think that Alex Jones, like his character, whatever, whether he came up with that kind of whole style that he does, whether it's just him naturally, whether there is some other influences going on, but either way, I think he kind of took some things from Bill Hicks's work, but I definitely don't think it's the same person.